based on the texts, both Sykes in text 1 and the scholars in text 2 would most likely agree with which statement? So what does Sykes say in text 1? H. Dugdale Sykes, great name, disputed claims that The Two Noble Kinsmen was co-authored by William Shakespeare and John Fletcher. Sykes felt Fletcher's contributions to the play were obvious. Fletcher had a distinct style in his other plays, so much that lines with that style were considered sufficient evidence of his authorship. But for the lines not deemed to be by Fletcher, Sykes felt that their depiction of women indicated that their author was not Shakespeare but Philip Massinger. Okay, so we'll say The Two Noble Kinsmen, I'll abbreviate it that way, was not by Shakespeare and Fletcher, but by Fletcher and Massinger. And maybe something else will be more important, but I'll just take that down as kind of, the overall assessment of this Mr. Sykes here. So what about passage 2? Scholars have accepted The Two Noble Kinsmen as co-authored by Shakespeare since the 1970s. It appears in all major one-volume editions of Shakespeare's complete works. Though scholars disagree about who wrote what exactly, it is generally held or believed that on the basis of style, Shakespeare wrote all of the first act and most of the last, while Fletcher authored most of the middle 3 acts. Okay, so the scholars here disagree with Sykes. Let's go to the answer choices and see is what they might agree with each other on. So A, The Two Noble Kinsmen belongs in one-volume compilations of Shakespeare's complete plays. And let's remember here that, first of all, it's got to be something that we could actually, support. We can point to a passage, point in one of the passages and say, oh, they would say this, or they would agree about this. And then we can point to something in the other one and say, oh, yeah, they would also agree on that. With this one, I think Sykes would not agree with this, right? Because he doesn't even think it was written by Shakespeare. Now, beyond that, the idea of what belongs in one-volume compilations of Shakespeare's complete plays is a little bit too narrow. It's not really. It's a bit of a side issue, I think, or a minor issue in terms of trying to find something that they might agree with. Whereas with B, John Fletcher's writing has a unique, readily identifiable style. Okay, so here it says Fletcher had a distinct style. Such a distinct style that encountering lines in that style was a clue that, hey, this was written by this guy Fletcher. Okay, what about the second passage? It says on the basis of style, they could determine that John Fletcher had a hand in it. So both of them, even if there's disagreement about other stuff, there's agreement that Fletcher had a distinctive enough style that you could see a line or 2 or 3 and say, oh, those are written by this guy. So yes, he has a unique, readily identifiable style. What about the others? Massinger's style in the first and last acts is an homage to Shakespeare's style. We don't see anything that actually says that in the first passage, and we don't see anything at all about Massinger in the second one. And then D, the women characters in Fletcher's plays are similar to the women characters in Philip Massinger's plays. That's an even bigger leap. I don't think we see. Oh, okay. There is a little bit about the depiction of women in the first passage, but there's nothing about the depiction of women in the second passage. So you want it to be, if they're going to agree on something, you need evidence from both passages. I think that's really the key thing here. And it's possible for them to disagree on some bigger point while still agreeing on some other point, and that's what we see here, this assessment that Fletcher has a unique, readily identifiable style.